My voice is on.
All right, and if folks can mute yourselves if you're not specifically addressing something here, that would be helpful. All righty, so I am opening up. Hang on, let me just mute. Hang on, who we got?
Am I on a camera? Oh, how did that go?
Videos out there.
Okay.
Okay.
We have somebody that is talking and not on mute. Can you go on mute? Well, let me see. I'll just mute a bunch of people here. Okay. All righty. So good evening. So this is our June 14th meeting of the LBC. And we are starting around right at 7. And this is being recorded, so it will be available through Stowe TV and on YouTube within a couple days of the meeting. We have all 3 commissioners here, and I'm going to just quickly run through what our agenda is today, and then we will move right into it. So we will start off with time for public comment. We do have on the agenda meeting minutes. We have bills for payment. We are going to spend some time on our budget for FY22 being at the tail end of the year. Spring weed treatment update, a little bit of discussion and any decisions we need to around the boat, motor, buoys, and any other prep for the rest of the season here. We're going to spend some time just reviewing boating regulations that seem to apply. We've gotten some, concerns from folks on the lake, so we thought we would just spend a little bit of time going over the various, both the local and the state, and see if there's anything in there that perhaps needs to be called to the attention of the safety officer, or anything in that space that we think might be appropriate. We will spend some time on leadership transition here. So I think folks are probably aware. I'm no longer going to be a commissioner after the end of this month. So there is ongoing work on bringing, identifying a 3rd commissioner to add to the group. So we will have some discussion about how to kind of work through things in the interim. Then we'll have old business, new business, and the group will set time for our next meeting. So let's jump into public comment. And again, just a reminder, this is for folks to raise questions or concerns that you would like to bring to the commission. This is not necessarily a time for us to actually address them and answer them, unless it's a very quick kind of a question. That's fine, but this is not really our point to actually work through a particular issue. So public comment. Do we have anyone that'd like to bring something up to the commission? Laura Diamond.
I just want to take a minute to thank you, Chris, for your service on the commission. And I really appreciated your leadership and your organization, keeping the meetings on track. And I realize how much time and energy goes into everything all of you guys do. And I'm grateful for everything you do. And Chris, thank you for your work on the commission. And I, for one, I'm sorry to see you go, but I realize that probably enough is enough, and time to put your energies into something else. So thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Anyone else for public comment?
I second that.
Thanks, Dave. Any further public comment? All right, excellent. Then we will move on. So the next thing on our agenda was meeting minutes. So I know, Dan, that you did send those out to us today. I did not have a chance to read through them for tonight.
We should defer until the next meeting for the formal review.
We can either do that, or if the two of you have done a review, I can abstain.
No, I think it's in my opinion, it's very useful, Chris, for you. You keep detailed notes as well. I would prefer to wait until the next meeting.
Okay,
Yeah,
Conrad?
well, I did review them. They looked very good, Dan. The only thing I found in them at all was that Jeff is not a special officer, he's the new safety officer.
Safety officer, okay.
So other than that, I couldn't find anything that, everything else looked great to me.
Great. I can make that change, but we'll, as we say, we'll defer formal approval until the next meeting.
Okay, so that's for the May 17th meeting minutes. Okay, all right. So next on the agenda is bills for payment, but I want to flip this for a moment here and talk a little bit about budget because it has some bearing on the bills for payment. So we're gonna spend a little bit of time on the budget and where things stand. So I want to, let's see, open something up and I will share it. Okay, let's see. Sec. Sorry, got a second screen going and it's not.
Meanwhile, Chris, there's this lovely reflection of the lake, the sun reflecting on the background behind you there.
Oh, yes, it
Pretty.
comes in pretty bright there.
Yeah.
All right, so let me share my screen. And I am going to share this one. All right, now, are you seeing a spreadsheet?
Yes.
Good, okay, that's doing the right thing here. It's funny because I don't actually see that on there, but okay. So let me just put this here. Let me make this a little bit bigger. So it'll be easier to talk through. So we are at the tail end of the fiscal year. So the end of June is the end of our fiscal period. And so, I've been tracking our spending. We were in really good shape until we get down. So in our budget, for our operating budget, we're still in very good shape. So we, if there is some other things that we need to deal with quickly, we could do that. So you can see we had budgeted fairly high on a couple of things, like we thought we might be needing to do more water testing. And that really got handled by the Healthy Lake Boone initiative more. Boat maintenance, we did not hit quite that number. Bears and buoys and things like that, we just didn't have that much. And our other supplies and that sort of stuff didn't go. The boat and trailer insurance, I've asked the town, so if they are going to take that 500 out of our account or not, I just haven't heard back. So that's possible, another, that will come out. But in any case, we're healthy, on finishing out that. What we are not as healthy on is on the herbicide, so the warrant article money. And so I spent some time on that. I actually called Solitude to get bills that I had not received yet related to this latest the pre-treatment survey for the follow-up and then the actual follow-up treatment. And what I'm realizing is because when we had to budget the money for this spring, like a year and a half ago, right? When we did our budget for FY22, we needed to budget the money for this spring, which we did. And we did it with the knowledge of it's usually a bigger amount. And we usually have to pay about 50% of the total herbicide budget in that first kind of first quarter of the calendar year. So we budgeted $22,000 for that. What's happened is with this new contract, they are billing as they deliver. And so the money isn't getting spread into the next fiscal year right now because they've done everything in this, this spring so far. There's probably not going to be, there may be still some that hits in, during the summer, but the vast majority of it is hitting now. So one of the things that we don't have, we probably be okay on the Stowe side because we had a bigger buffer sitting in the Stowe side from last year, but we didn't have that big one in Hudson carrying over from the previous year. So my thinking, and I'm interested, Conway and Dan, in your thoughts on this. My thinking right now is that we contact Solitude and ask them to re-invoice, but invoice us as an installment in July, as opposed to what we've received now as a June bill.
Can
Just
you
move that one, Chris?
Sorry?
Just move that one?
We need to really probably move both of them, the 750 and the 10,825, given that they're kind of coming in together.
Okay.
Chris, could you clarify? We have, if you combine the balances that we had before this, up to this year,
Yep.
the balance that we have in this fiscal year, and the amount approved in the next fiscal year, we have enough money to pay the bills. It's just that we don't have it available now. Is that correct?
Correct. That's correct.
So, and have you, I don't know if you've approached Denise or anybody about this, whether Stowe or Hudson has any normal way they deal with this kind of situation?
I have not, because I literally spent quite a bit of time today kind of going through to figure out that this is where we are at, because we didn't even have these two bills yet. But I figured they probably existed and they just hadn't come to us yet. So I have not. I figured I would talk with you guys tonight and see how we think we need to handle that. As I said, and I don't have right at my fingertips, but I believe that Hudson, we did not have enough of a carryover that we can cover this much and pay it out of funds that are available to us now. But in Stowe we do, because there was a big carryover, which we were going to compensate for in how we budgeted for 23. And it may not be a big issue at all. It may be just as you said, but we just pay it in July and we're okay, but I don't know that for a fact.
Yeah, so
Was it invoiced differently in previous years?
Yes. So the way that it used to be invoiced was very different. We had a 3-year contract, Red, and each year we had 4 milestone payments. So each quarter we had a predefined amount of the total contract for that year that we had to pay. And in the first quarter of the calendar year, we would have to pay 50% of the total contract amount. And then it was, I think, 25, I don't know, it was some amount, and then this last one was the smallest one. So it's a very different way right now. And it's a 1-year contract. So it is just different.
So is it not a problem if we move those two invoices into July, which would be calendar next year?
I,
Then
I have to ask,
Denise,
the towns, whether that's an issue or not. So we have an invoice sitting here. Yeah, we have invoices that they have submitted in June for services that were delivered in May. And I don't know the answer to that yet. I'd have to talk to someone there to get the answer, whether it's a non-issue or is it an issue.
But Chris, the invoice that puts us over is the one that's dated 5/31?
The one that's putting us over is,
The 10,825?
yes. Well,
614.
well, actually, both of them probably, again, it's close, but yes, the 10,825 definitely puts us over.
Can you clarify, when you say put us over, what I'm looking for is the total of the leftover balance from previous years and the amount allocated for this year, that total between those two. How far are we short when you put those together? You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, and I think I wrote that somewhere, but let me see where I put that. Go. Let's see if that's. All right, so in Hudson, so I don't have this on there. Maybe I'll just pop it in here. We'll just put it in here. That way people can see. Okay. So the Hudson balance right now is 9,153. And the Stowe. That one is 30,355. And yeah, and so coming out of these, we would have to take out for Hudson 8,065 and another 3,858. So just, there.
What do you mean we would have to take out?
So this is the balance today that does not have these invoices pulled out of it because they haven't been paid.
Where did the number 8,065 come from?
That's the amount of the 1/3 that
Okay.
that will have to be paid off of one set of bills, and then there's another set that we'd have to make sure it comes out of there.
All right. And then if you do the same thing with Stowe?
Yeah, and so Stowe, we have 30,000, and we'd end up having to pay another 23,847. So we're okay in Stowe, but we would run into a deficit in Hudson because we just weren't carrying such a huge balance there. So I think if my numbers were right from earlier, there would be a deficit. Again, if they paid that this year, that would be our it's 4,696.
Can you label those columns?
Yeah. I can, but let's not worry about the formality. The reality is that we got enough money to pay what we would have to in Stowe, but we don't have enough to pay what has to get paid in Hudson. So one of the things that's happened is there's some bills that we approved back in, I think was it April, Conrad, that I said?
Yeah, they were.
Yep, so we have some bills that we had approved.
I didn't
The
see that.
Stowe portion of those, so the 2/3 portions, those payments went through. And the Hudson has not yet. So on our ledger from each of the towns, you know, we don't, these are amounts that are still gonna hit. In both of these will hit in Hudson. And then this is our,
Well,
Our
so I guess what I'd like to recommend, well, I think we need to find out from Stowe and Hudson what of these options are allowable. The
yes,
simplest one is to say to Solitude, let's say whatever bills we need,
It's
like
not
the
that-
10,825.
Yep.
We say, can you bill us in July?
Yeah.
That's the simplest solution. The second simplest solution is for us to calculate how much we have available between the two and see how far we get, and then ask them to defer on whatever that balance is.
It's not that simple. What you run into is evidently the contract changed from the way we used to do it. So because of the way the contract was worded, we basically got billed a delay between when we got services and when we got billed. What we'll probably run into now, because of the different contract, is the towns will say, well, the service was in FY22. So my real question is to Patricia, you know, because can we pay that out of the, I don't know, I'm not talking well. So the sticky in the ointment is when the service was delivered.
right,
And if it was not warrant money, you know, it's definitely can't do it. But I'm not so sure with the warrant money. See, so if I put this simply, they changed the way they billed us, but we didn't change the way we acquired money.
correct.
Mhm.
Correct. Yeah, and so I agree with you, Conray. I think the other possible option is if we could get Solitude to bill us as in this case, a specific amount as a milestone, a phase 2, whatever they want to call it, a milestone payment. In which case, then it doesn't matter that the service was delivered, because they're not billing us for, quote, the service delivered, they're billing us for the milestone payment.
That would work.
I don't know if they'd be willing to, I don't know if that would work, but this is why I wanted to have this conversation before we go to bills, because I don't think we can approve those 2 bills that we have. I think actually maybe it's only one, but anyway, I don't think we can approve those today.
So, and let me also clarify, are we going to have one more meeting in June? The June 29th we had tentatively said?
That's what we had
So-
tentatively
So
said.
we could say, thanking you for doing these calculations, that we then authorize you to talk with both towns to figure out what is the best solution to this issue. And then we approve that solution at the end of the month.
If we need to talk to Solitude, I can talk to Solitude once we've decided what we would like that thing to be.
And I guess, Chris, the thing I'm still not quite sure I understand, it looks like Hudson balance of 9,153, Stowe balance of 30,355. That totals 39,000 something. Since we only have bills for 33,220, why can't we pay it?
No, because we have bills for the 23, let's see, we have bills for 35.
Because the Hudson balance isn't 9,000.
Yes, it's the Hudson problem. The problem is Hudson. It's not a problem in Stowe. And we can't cross those things. We can't just pay the bill. So So Hudson has to have a third. And what they have to have is
So,
5,000, oops, I don't want it, some $11,923.
right, so
order to
then I
pay.
guess there's sort of an underlying additional issue here, that the 2/3, 1/3 requirement plays out for each year's new allocation, but it doesn't play out in the balances, because the balances from previous years are not in a 2/3, 1/3 ratio.
Yeah, it's,
I don't know, whichever one has more.
let's
we need some way
not
to
worry about
say-
that.
We need some way to use that when it isn't in a 2/3, 1/3 ratio, because otherwise we're stuck with money that we can't spend.
So
Well.
I don't disagree, but just let's not go back to how we have balances. We do have balances, and we made some adjustments when we planned for FY23 to kind of shore those up and get, so that we don't end up with these huge, amounts held up. So I think we thoughtfully addressed the balances and made good decisions for FY23. We just had no idea a year and a half ago that we were going to have to pay basically 100% or close to 100% of the Solitude bill for the year in the first quarter.
Well, maybe we should just go back and say, I don't think the three of us can talk through a solution any further.
Yes, I
I
agree.
think we should just say, Chris, thank you for doing these calculations. We understand the nature of the problem. Talk to both towns, and then on the 29th, we'll approve whatever solution you come up with. Does that work for you, Conray?
Yeah, we got to talk to the towns. So I haven't talked to Tricia. So right now, Chris, I've got one Solitude bill I have to submit for $7,215 our share. Is that the only one I've got?
Well, you
Another one.
did, so you have, sorry, you have,
Another one. I got another one.
there were three, right, Conray, in that?
Yeah, I've got two so far. The second one is for $750. And the third one is printing. So yeah, but and the outstanding one we were looking at tonight is the 531 bill. And that's the one that's causing the problem, right? 531.
Yes, the
I
one-
think says
Yes,
614.
the ones that are causing us essentially the problem are the two that we have not approved. So those are the two that literally I got today. So those are both invoice dates are 5/17. Oh no, one's 5/17 and one's 5/31. So those two bills are, rather than, well, I suppose we could split them apart, but they all relate to the same thing. So, so those bills are what we have the issue with.
Yeah, so
And
we
you
already
still
did-
have to submit, Conray, the ones you didn't submit back in
Yeah, I'll
April.
do that tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, I gotta talk to people, it's a little bit of a sticky wicket, but I like what I think somebody said is Solitude should rebill us, not on service dates, but on contract progress. And that way they could rebill us a little bit differently, and we can then use the money. And we have the money come July 1.
Correct, we do.
But what I'm worried about is, yeah, we get the money come July 1, but what happens next spring? Do we have the money to pay for that stuff?
Right, well, we could only do an estimate based on what we knew prior to the contract being signed, so.
That's a true statement, but we still have to look at.
I agree with you. I completely agree with you that we could be in the same situation next year.
Maybe worse.
Well,
Yeah, maybe, but again, if So, all right, I think we can table this discussion because we don't have enough information to solve for it. We have options. I will try to get a hold of Denise tomorrow. And first, kind of check with her, and then as needed, Conway, we'll probably have to talk to Hudson and see if, whatever Denise thinks is a good way forward, if Hudson also agrees with that.
Right, so right now, if that 9,153 number is correct, my Hudson balance in this fizz year is a little over $1,000. It's, but the bill that we just, the new bills total how much?
The new bills, for the Hudson portion of the new bills,
Yeah, never mind, I got the numbers in my head already. They're roughly, let's call it 12,000, so you need 3,000, it's a little less than that, but yes, we need 3,000 Hudson, we only got 1,000.
the Hudson bills are 3,608 plus 250.
Yeah, plus now,
Yeah, so that's where the
The warrant.
3,858 comes from.
so in Hudson, they approved the warrant for the new money starting July 1.
Correct.
Now, do you want to talk, you're going to talk to Denise, right?
I'm going to talk to Denise first, and then we can kind of move on to, based on whatever, if she says talk to Hudson, or if she says maybe let's try to get Solitude to rebuild differently, then that's what we'll take to Hudson and say, are you okay with us doing that? So
You need to hang your hat on the contract change.
yes, I understand. We had no knowledge of what that contract would be a year and a half, almost 2 years
Yeah,
ago. when we
and
had to-
let's remember that we have enough money overall. It's just a timing question.
Correct.
I'd like to go back to the suggestion that we have you, Chris, talk to Denise and then talk to both towns and work out a solution.
Yes, I agree. So I think we're
And
done with the
Is it,
discussion.
is it possible, Chris, I'm still having trouble understanding how these numbers work in this spreadsheet. Is it possible for you and I between now and then to take a look at this budget spreadsheet and help me understand that? Or is that outside of our bounds of conversation?
Well,
outside of that?
between now and then is between now and tomorrow morning when I'm gonna try to reach Denise. So I think let me just
Danny,
make
Chris,
that.
wait a minute, there's more to this, okay? You haven't covered yet. Number one, we have unspent budget money in our regular budget. So we might be able to use some of that to pay for the weed treatment.
I don't think we can.
I don't think we
I
can.
don't think we can.
I'm almost sure I can in Hudson. Hudson doesn't allocate by line item, they allocate by total. So, but anyways, that's still an issue, still not enough money.
Yeah,
But,
yeah,
okay,
there still wouldn't be anywhere near enough money. So
yeah, we're $3,000, I mean, we're $2,000 short.
all right, so let's table. So we are
Well, how about
not.
after you talk with both towns, can you and I go over the spreadsheet?
Probably, yes. I mean, I can explain to you what it is. We can't deliberate about it, but
Right, but if you can explain to me what it is, because I'm still
Yes.
having trouble
Yeah.
following how all the different sources come together and their timing and so on. I'm sure it's here, but I'm having trouble seeing that level of detail, and I don't think we should spend time right now on it. So
agreed.
why don't we then wrap up this discussion and move on to other budget-related topics?
Okay. So
Chris, can you
that's,
forward the spreadsheet to us?
yes, I mean, literally, I put this together so I could have something to talk about. But yes, and if it needs a little cleanup, I'll clean it up. But it's really just intended to show this is how I've been tracking what we spend. This is what we budgeted on the operating budget. And then this is just reflecting, and I don't have on this spreadsheet right now because I was trying to just grab information when I was on the phone with Solitude, whatever. But we have a balance from the ledgers that you guys also had that we got a month ago. So I was using that along with what I know got paid, so.
Good. Thank you for doing that.
Are you
Okay.
gonna call, Chris, are you gonna call someone in Hudson, or are you gonna call me? and I'll
I'm
call?
first gonna call Denise, and depending on what I hear there, I will make a decision as to whether I just need to talk to you when we go to Hudson, or we have to go to Solitude first, or whatever.
Okay, so there's no real deliberation beyond this point, it's just a matter
No.
of working on.
No, we don't need a motion or anything. We're just tabling, that point until we have better information.
Sounds good.
Chris,
Okay.
do you have at your fingertips what Hudson approved for the next warrant article? I can look it up, but I don't have it at my fingertips.
For the next warrant
Yeah,
item,
July 1.
yeah. No, I don't have it right at my fingertips.
Okay, I can pull it out. Same thing, I don't have it at my fingertips either. Okay. We need to know that before we go too far into this.
Yeah, no, I don't have that sitting right here, so.
I'll dig it out and let you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I have it. I just
Oh,
don't have it
okay.
sitting right here because, we
Okay,
submitted those requests. You guys also have a copy of each of the requests we submitted for the warrants. So that would be that. All right.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we are then done with the budget. So I am going to stop screen sharing. All right, so now on our agenda, back to our agenda. Now we can go and have the discussion about bills for payment minus Solitude. All right, so we have 2 invoices for the ads to go in the newspaper that Red paid for. And so he would need to be reimbursed. Those are for $75 and $80. So do I have a motion?
you gonna do these
that.
individually or all together?
What's that?
There's only 2, how many bills do we have?
2 bills. We have
One-
2 bills, one for 75 and one for 80. We can do that in one motion.
I'm sorry, how many bills are submitted to this meeting?
Total,
Yes,
Yeah.
2, 3,
3.
3, so we could approve them all with a single motion.
Well, yes, I suppose. Because, I'd prefer we get whatever. These are to be reimbursed
Yeah,
to
motion to
him, and then the other one's
reimburse-
reimbursed to me.
A motion to reimburse Red for his expenses.
Second.
Okay, so this is in the amount of $75 and $80. So the motion is to approve reimbursements to Red for those 2 bills. And do I have a second?
Yep. Conrad moved, Dan seconded.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that is unanimous. So those are approved. All right. And then the second thing is the Zoom account for the month, and that's in the amount of $14.99 reimbursement to me. Do we have a motion on that?
Motion to reimburse Chris $14.99 for a Zoom account.
Second.
Excellent. Any further discussion?
Well, just in the long run, it's, I mean, you're supposed to pay this personally and get reimbursed. The town we just can't bill it to the town. And I'm just wondering if we could do a year-long contract and have it cheaper.
So let's hold that for the discussion around the transition.
Okay.
Okay, because this is bills to pay.
All right.
So we had a motion and we had a second, and we had no further discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
And that is unanimous, so that is approved. So I will submit those. Red, if you will just send me an email with your home address,
Sure.
because they'll send you a check.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Next on our agenda was just a quick
Kristen,
spring.
what about the bill that I did?
Oh, sorry. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. So where's my? All right. So we have yours is a bunch of things all totaling $574.74. Is that correct, Conray?
Sounds it.
Dan, is that what you also see?
Yeah.
It sounds like the right number. Of course, you know, when I want a piece of paper, it's buried. Oh, there it is. 574.74 is correct.
Okay. So do we have a motion to reimburse Conray for the amount of $574.74?
I move.
I second.
Okay. Excellent. Any further discussion? All right, I hear none. All in favor? Aye. Aye, that is unanimous and approved. Okay. Very good. And Conray, what I'll do is I will submit the emailed one along with what you wrote up, just in case they push back and say, where's the original receipt? So,
It's just a copy and paste into the email, you know. And plus the fact, you know, you can't get reimbursed for taxes.
correct. Yep. Okay, now are we done with our bills for payment? Anything
think so.
else? Before we leave this one, Dan, back
Yep.
months ago, we looked at two bills from Rhode Island Analytical. That,
And I when I went through my notes, I saw today that I was supposed to follow up on that, and I haven't yet. I did email Dave Gray about it, but I don't think we wrapped it up. So I request deferral until the next meeting.
well, we can't pay that anyhow, because it's actually not even in this fiscal year.
And that's why
I don't want Rhode Island Analytical, since it's our one,
Yep.
our one testing thing, to you know, be
Yep.
upset with us and not take our next samples.
Yeah. So I confess I did not do that task, but I will before our next meeting.
Okay. All right, so I think it would be good to find out if we are still carrying a balance, you know,
Yep.
a past due balance with them. Because I mean, it is possible that you just submitted the wrong invoice, or you resubmitted an
Yep.
invoice. I don't know, but anyway. All right, so you've got the action on that one.
Yep.
All right. All right, so now we are on to spring weed treatment update. And so Red, do you want to just do a quick update on where things stand?
Solitude did survey the situation with weeds and determined that it was necessary to do a sonar boost treatment. And they did that in the third and the fourth basin. And this time, after discussion with residents that had asked about the weeds, they were seeing they did it on the shoreline of the second basin. And it's all done.
And didn't they use dicot for part of that? Isn't it a combination of sonar and dicot based on the weeds?
Good question. I don't recall offhand, Chris, whether they did the dicot that time or not. I would have to check and get back to you on that.
Okay, I thought I saw that on their kind of report out of their
Right.
actual treatment.
Right, right.
Okay. But I think that was for curly
Curly pond weed.
leaf, right? Curly pond, that's it. All right, so at this point, do we expect them to come out again sometime?
I
this
believe
summer?
so, based on discussion with Dominic, it sounded like he expected that, at least to come take a look again, and that it was entirely possible, if not likely, that another booster would be needed.
Okay.
He'll test the concentration in the water and then recommend the treatment if it
Okay.
isn't up to snuff.
Solitude is also committed to meeting, recall that part of their task this year was to help us rethink how we should approach this in the future.
Yep.
So we have that meeting set up with the Healthy Lake Boone Initiative for actually this Thursday at 5 o'clock. And that will include Dominic, Dave Gray, Kirk, Ed Red, and myself.
Excellent. Okay. Any other questions or anything, Conway? Matt?
I'm good on that.
Okay. All right, next is the motor replacement buoys, other prep for 2022. So this is our opportunity if there's anything that we need to do and want to get in during this fiscal year, kind of on the books, this would be the time to do that. So I think, Conway, you had mentioned something about a controller.
Yeah, good news, bad news. So let's go with the good news first. I have a motor. It's put aside. If you go to a dealer right now and you order a motor, it's 26 weeks at least before you see it. So we have a motor set aside. That's the good news. Bad news is we didn't budget for putting the motor on the boat. And with a new motor, they won't give you a new motor unless they mount it on your boat. So we can't just order the motor and take it and do all the work ourselves. I'll have between now and the next meeting more data on that. I've sent off a request to the dealer to give me some harder numbers. So I've got to get more data, but yes, the controls on the boat should be replaced as well as the motor. And there's a rigging charge to mount the motor. So I don't have that number now.
How much is the motor itself?
I don't know exactly. I'm waiting for a quote. It's under 8,000, but it's not a whole bunch under 8,000. Rigging could be as much as 3,500, but I don't think it's going to be on this boat. So I'm gonna have to follow up with Portside Marine. I'll do that tomorrow. I was gonna do it today and forgot to see if where my numbers are. They will take the old motor and trade. They're not going to give us money for it, but it's real money, so that's good. That'll help. We can use, for instance, maintenance money we could use to buy controls. So what I'm thinking right now is to use some of our leftover budget to buy the parts that we need to mount the new motor, and then we can pay for the motor and the other stuff out of next year's budget.
I don't know that will.
It's legal.
Oh, I know that part's legal, but we have to really pay attention to what the new motor is costing, because if it is hitting over the 10,000, then it's capital.
Yeah. So you got to be careful. Okay, the motor cost is one number, right? Mounting the motor is. I hear what you're saying. The capital cost of the motor is separate, I think, from the service cost to mount it.
Okay, well, that may be true, but it depends on, like, if they literally won't sell us the motor without doing the installation, it may not. It may not be looked at that way.
I'll talk to Portside Marine tomorrow and get better data and tell you guys what's going on. I sent I copied you guys on the email I sent out to Portside. I did talk to the.
I don't remember seeing, I'm not sure I saw that. Dan, did you see an email from Conrad to Portside?
About the motor itself, I thought I saw one.
Okay, maybe I just missed that.
Yeah, I sent it out on June 3rd.
Okay. I'll take a look at that.
I can bring it back up for you if you'd like.
Now, if you sent it, I've got it. I probably skipped over it, or I looked at it and I just don't remember I looked at it.
No, I never do that. Right?
Yeah.
So, he asked me for all the data and I sent him the data, etc. This time of year, marinas are nuts. So I'll follow up. The guy's name is Peter. I will follow up with Peter tomorrow and see if what the numbers are. I don't think we're going to be over the 10K number no matter what.
I'm sorry, you don't think we will?
I don't think we will.
Okay.
Okay. So we're not making any decisions around anything in that relative to that till after you get to the more information.
I don't think there's any decisions to make yet.
That's fine.
And we've already approved purchasing the motor. And the only real question is, what are the real numbers? And so when we get some real numbers, I guess we'll approve those. But I'll call Peter tomorrow and see if I can't get some hard data. He's had enough time to figure it out.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So anything more on this agenda item? Okay. All right, let's move on here. So this is not like a deliberating kind of thing around new regulations or anything else. What because we've heard folks talking about and in some cases calling to our attention issues with the wakeboarding boats, the personal watercraft, and just in general, again, fast moving things and wakes. We thought we would just spend a few minutes here and review what exists in legislator right now. So the things that could be enforced by the environmental police, the Stowe police, not by the LBC, because we don't have the right to enforce to actually enforce the boating regulations. That's left to the law enforcement. So what I thought we would do is just spend a few minutes and talk through some sections and see if there's anything out of that which either triggers thoughts around something we could be doing, should be doing, our partners in law enforcement might be able to help with, etc. Does that sound fair? Okay, so I'm just going to start with chapter 90B. I'm going to share my screen again.
I'm gonna play with you.
Okay. So there's a couple of things that are at the state level that are relevant. So 90B, of course, is one of them. And then the 323 CMR, well, there's two sections, 2 and 4, that we'll take a quick look at, that has actually a little bit more information, a little bit more definition of some of the regulations. very little in chapter 90B that I'm aware of. And Conrad, you maybe know of more, but there's not a whole lot that we can hang our hats on from 90B. So let me jump in here. These are the section. All right, first of all, can you see my screen with the website on it?
Yes, I can.
Yep.
Okay, so this is 90B. And these are all sections of 90B. I think that the first thing that really within these regulations, there's a section on so the personal watercraft stuff, and I'm going to open that so folks can see what it says. It doesn't give us a whole lot, to be honest. So a couple of things to note. So they're allowed on bodies of water that are greater than 75 acres, which Lake Boone is. So I think we're 163 or so acres. So it's not that. The age, I don't know that I don't know if anyone else has feels as though we have underage. I don't think I have seen what I would assume is underage, but obviously they have to be 16 years of age or older. Has anybody seen that as an issue? No. Okay. So they do have to, well, they can't actually operate. It's interesting because the way it's worded, but they can't even operate within 150 feet of a swimmer. So that's, if a swimmer is out 20 feet from the shore or whatever, then they need to stay 150 feet from there, from the shore itself, from moored vessels, which we really shouldn't have moored, but we may have boats that have sort of set anchor a little bit to hang out, and that does happen. So they can do that at as long as they're only at headway speed. And we know about the sunset to sunrise. And so again, are there any of these that folks are specifically seeing violations on?
I wonder, Chris, whether the 150 feet, it doesn't feel like they could do that in the third or the fourth basin. I don't think either of them is wide enough and big enough to be more than 150 feet.
There's
marginally on the second basin where, I mean, yes, they could run straight down the middle, but that's not what they do. They do donuts. They come along the shorelines, but they don't go by the 150 feet on the second basin either.
I'm not sure that is true, Dan. So I was looking at our lake and sort of the dimensions, and these are not by any way perfect, but they're close enough for discussion.
Okay.
And it looks like, in basin 2, aside from the pinch point there, that's right at was it Indian
Corner
Point?
up past Monahan's.
At Indian Point, but kind of in the narrowest point in the middle of basin 2 seems to be a little over 600 feet wide. So there's a good opportunity really for them to remain 150 feet from shore at least, or from docks that come out up to 20 feet into that, and still be appropriately operating.
In the
Now,
second basin.
Yes. Then in the third basin, it's kind of it's pretty much they have to be close to being just in the middle, right? There's probably about 400 feet in the midst of 400 something, and in those kind of 2 areas of that basin. So with the exception of our weird little narrow one, there's small spaces where they in fact are more than 300 feet wide, right? And that would be the minimum that would have to be to go straight down it.
Hey, Chris, this is Ernie Dodd.
Yes,
I took a map of Lake Boone and I
Yeah.
took a 150-foot circle and went around the edge.
Yep.
There's in Basin 2, they overlap. There is no room for to meet the law requirements of 150 feet from the shorelines.
you mean at the pinch line, at that
At
pinch
any
at
place
Indian Point.
along Basin 2. In Basin 1, there's an area of about 700 feet by 100 feet in the middle of the lake that's available. The rest of it, if there's swimmers along the side, the boats just can't operate there. That's by the law.
Ernie,
I
do
can
you
send you
have,
those maps. I'm
can
sure
you-
you've seen them before, but I can send them to you, and there are definitely restrictions.
can you show the map, if she gives you, control?
Let me see,
try.
'cause I have a map
I
somewhere.
recall such a map from before, and it
Yeah,
really,
and
I think we need it.
does not match with what Ernie is saying though. So let me see if I can find that. Should have looked for this before. I have a printout of it here, but I don't. There, let's try this one.
So guys,
I'm not saying I would want to prohibit the boats, but we can restrict things.
So,
we already have. The question is not what's the law. The question is not any of the stuff you're talking about. It's an enforcement problem.
well, it's both, Conrad. So there is
law is-
us
The law is the
understanding.
law.
Well, I know the law is the law, and I think part of why we wanted to talk through it today is to see, is our perception of what's happening on the lake actually violating the law or not? So that's why I wanted to take a look at, what the rules are, and then see if we're just perceiving something different, in observing behavior. We think it's a violation and maybe it is not. So this, can you see a map on the screen now?
No,
No? Okay, hang on. Let me share. Hold on. Thought it would just show up there. Hold on. You share there. You share. Okay.
That's
Bring this down a little bit.
not 150 feet.
All I can tell you is this was the map that was done by the Stowe Town Planning Department.
That's not 150 feet.
Okay, well.
can we see what Ernie has?
If she can allow me, I don't know how, I've got the map, but I can bring it up. I don't know.
Stop sharing and. Let's see.
What do I have to do to do it?
All right, so. Ernie, you're over here. There you are. Okay, let me see.
It is 300 feet there, by the way.
I'm sorry, 300 feet where?
At the pinch point, I don't know if it's
Yes.
part of
Yes.
the record, but I measured that years ago very accurately. And I think it was 311 feet, if I recall. I did present that information to the commission at one point.
And that would align with the map that Chris showed.
It's showing a minor thing, like a minor path through there.
I used a map that was available from the state. And they have a scale, and I scaled it up to 100, it was a 50-foot scale. I scaled it up to 150 feet, a circle, and placed it over the map. So
Yeah, Ernie, I
That's-
think,
Do you
If-
see mine?
no. Did you ask, could you request to share?
How do I do that?
I don't know.
Would you
trying to-
go down, well, as long as.
Oh,
Chris
hang
is
on,
off
hang
the
on,
call,
let's
Go
Share
to
Yeah.
screen, okay.
go to share
Yeah.
screen.
So I just enabled, yep, there, that should,
You see that?
yeah,
There's a scale down here in the corner that, and also up here. I put two maps together. That's the 50-foot. Here's the 50-foot, 150-foot circle. And one around the lake. On the second basin, same thing. The third and fourth, there's no question about it, but
You know, Ernie, those numbers don't make sense. I mean, that diagram doesn't make sense, because we know it's 600 feet across the lower part of the basin too. And that's not what you're showing. You're showing that it's less than that.
I just went by a map that's available online from the state
Yeah, I'd be careful. I'd be careful.
and
right now.
took the 50-foot scale they had provided.
I'd be
I'll work at it
careful.
more, but I think there's I have to go by what the map said, but if I'll look at other maps to see what, I'll do the same thing.
I guess, I mean, I know where this one came from, the one that I was sharing, and that was our, an official map generated by the town of Stowe's planning board, using probably, Google Earth and appropriately software to identify, so the.
Yeah. Ernie, I'm
shaded-
looking, Ernie, keep that map showing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So I'm not sure you have the right metrics. If you look in the lower left, you can see the scale and it
Yep.
shows where 50 meter is and where 200 feet is. If I'm just holding up the width of 50
Okay,
meters, it
I
aligns with your
realized I
50
made a
feet.
mistake. I thought it was 50 and I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah.
Okay,
All right.
I
Okay,
will redo it
Okay.
and present it to you.
okay.
I
So
screwed up.
that's all right. So for now,
But
we'll
Chris,
just, yes.
either way, the map that you have is in some sense official, and it looks right to me when I look at your map. Knowing the lake.
Yeah,
So the map that you put up from the planning board is pretty close to right. So back to your other question, Chris, what have we seen on the lake, right?
Yep.
We've seen people that live on the lake and own jet skis, for the most part, have been pretty good. Not perfect, but pretty good. The problem we've had really is people that come off lake. And if you own a jet ski, you're just dying to find a place to use it. And it has been for many years an enforcement issue. We have to catch them breaking the law, and then we have to, warn them or do something. And so for many years, what we've been able to do is, with the off-lakers, I would stop them or Lee would stop them and we, talk to them and basically tell them not to come back, because next time you're going to get a ticket that's going to hurt a lot. And for the most part, we've kept down that. What we do not want is a reputation of being a place to come and go jet skiing.
But Conrad, what are you seeing when you say we've had issues with them? You're seeing them violating
So
which of the rules? Is it the
pretty much-
150?
Pretty much all of them. I've seen jet skis operate at 50 miles an hour, which is a violation because the state
Yep.
speed limit is 45.
45, yep,
So we've seen them operating at high speeds close to shore. And like I
Okay.
said, for the most part, they're not ours. They're not, when I say ours, I mean a resident of the lake. We've seen them operate after dark. We've seen reckless behavior. I have another list I'll have to send you. I'll find it. There's 8 things in that thing that jet skis aren't supposed to do. Although I'm kind of interested because what you just brought up in CMR 23 is
yeah, no, I can pull that one up too, Conrad. I figured we would spend a little bit of time on that.
Let's stop right here, because if you're 16 to 18, you're supposed to have a certificate to operate, unless they've changed it.
That's
So,
still there.
So this is CMR. The personal watercraft is 4.0. And I think these are the things you're talking about on
Okay.
operation. Yep.
there you go.
So the
That's a
minimum
little
age,
different. That's a
again-
little different than the other one.
yes, but I'm just saying, I think there's actually more detail, clearly more detail in CMR on pretty much everything. So there is a minimum age. Again, I don't know that we're seeing issues with age. Maybe that is true. I don't know that we're seeing issues with, well, I don't know about the types, but they seem to be wearing life jackets for the most part. I can't say I've seen a lot that haven't. Has anybody seen people, actually towing someone?
We had one problem this year already.
Yeah, with towing. Okay.
Yeah.
Towing a tube?
I think it was a tube, yes,
But they can't tow anything, period.
right.
Evening operations, so they can't be, they can't be out there between sunset and sunrise.
Yep.
I mean, that's been happening.
Yep.
It has. So they're out there at night, is that what we're
Yep.
saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not real, Red, have you seen them out late at night? I've just seen them out, a half hour after sunset.
No, I've seen them after dark, 9, 10 o'clock at night. They occasionally show up in the second basin.
Okay,
Okay, that's kind of worth noting because they certainly don't have the they don't have the lights or anything else that would allow that. They clearly are not supposed to be. All right, and then the safe operation, that's kind of wishy-washy, prudent manner. Speed restrictions, speed restrictions, that has to do with rentals. And this is pretty wishy-washy here. 6, negligent manner.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't want to, I'm not sure what you mean by wishy-washy. I think it is our enforcement rule of last resort, if you will. If we can't name a specific thing like speeding or whatever, negligent behavior is a pretty important statement. Safe and negligent, those are two criteria that follow all the rest. You still can be having a problem if you're just being unsafe.
I don't disagree, but you kind of have to point to why what I think might be unsafe, what you might think, what I think is negligent might be different. So we have to come back to what are the
And this list right here looks pretty darn good.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So they do give the examples, and this is helpful. But again, it's like weaving, unreasonably close. Well, what is that? I mean, is that anything within 150 feet? Towing, we already know that would be in the evening. So there are some defined things that are here in CMR. And so I think these are the kinds of things that as people feel like we're seeing violations, these are things to be paying attention to. These are things that could be discussed and captured with the safety officer and say, we're seeing a lot of this, whether it's nighttime, usage or towing or, running too close to the shore, interfering with a water skier. So, following too close to a water skier, those kinds of things.
Does the 150 feet and in the width of the third and the fourth basin suggest the whole back should be no wake zone for a jet ski?
pretty close, Red, pretty close.
Yeah,
It may be a
I mean,
small narrow,
yeah.
I'd love to make it painful, Conray, so if they want to come in off the town ramp, they have to go no wake all the way to the second basin. we can make it just painful enough so that they don't want to do it anymore.
So that we could, I mean, that would be something that the commission could undertake as its own, rule to work through the process. But I will tell you that based on what we're seeing, there's sections that look like they're 400 and 460, in the broader sections of Basin 3, that they could say this, I can go over.
So Chris, where are we going with this? Yes, this is the law. We know that.
Yes. And where we were going was to review some of this stuff so that everybody has in their mind what are the rules, because I think that's not necessarily been the case. And before any kind of request or thought is made to should the LBC be actually trying to work on changing rules to eliminate something in whether it's Basin 3 and 4, whatever that might be. This is sort of the predecessor to even having any of those conversations. Do we understand the rules as they stand? Do we have violations of those happening on a regular basis? Is there anything there? So that's the point of this, Conray.
Okay.
Is
Are
the
we
other
taking
thing-
public comment?
Hang on one second, Steve.
Is the other goal, Chris, that for us to tell Jeff what he should be enforcing?
Well, I
'Cause
think he probably,
he's looking for direction.
I would say that he knows what the rules are. What I think if we were seeing consistent or some issues that were repeated and we felt like that they needed a real focus, then that's something we could tell Jeff. I'm sure he's very well aware of what the rules are, but certainly the LBC could have a conversation. A member could have a conversation with them and say, okay, here's our understanding of the personal watercraft rules and that sort of
Well,
thing. And
So let me just add that the other day I'm learning how to handle a powerboat. And so Conray and I went out. Thank you, Conray, for helping me learn about how to handle the LBC boat. Got more to go. And I've also been learning through online courses and so on. But by coincidence, Conray and I were out there at a time when Jeff came by. So I think that the relationship that Conray has had with the patrol officer, the safety officer, is a fundamental part of the effectiveness of this deployment. And I saw that conversation take place there. And I think it is true. Jeff knows the laws. He knows, crazy behavior, but he did say, look, if there's any kind of guidance of things that you think are important, he was requesting that information. I think,
He asked the same thing of me. He said he'll enforce what he's told to enforce.
right. So any guidance we can provide of saying, look, these are the things that we're especially concerned about, that can give him some direction. What I get, Chris, from this, and I'm very glad we spent some time going over this, is that I think, we have a sufficient set of rules, whether it's through 90B or whether it's our own bylaws, that say that, this unsafe behavior is just, we can't do it. As Conray said, we need to establish a sort of a sense in the world out there that Lake Boone is not a place where you come and fool around. And unfortunately, we don't have enough time of a patrol officer to be there all the time. But I don't know if there are any other ways to communicate that. Maybe some clearer signs. I know at the launch we have that big sign that has all the rules printed, but I don't know if anybody ever goes up and look. But if there were some maybe signs on the lake, approaching either third or fourth basin, or maybe as they go in saying no wake as they leave the launch, there may be other ways we can communicate this. But I think and we've been focusing on the the personal watercraft, but it's also the wakeboard issues that we've seen.
I want to give, I know Steve's had his hand up. Steve, go ahead. Steve, you still on mute?
He's muted. Steve, unmute yourself. Chris, you can unmute him.
I tried,
You
didn't
tried?
go. It just didn't unmute him.
Steve, you there?
Right, well, we'll see if he,
So following up on what you just said, Dan, you know, and a few things to remember. That number one is it is an enforcement issue. We, like you said, Dan, we have enough rules. Enforcement has always been the issue. You know, the personal watercraft, it's difficult for them to operate legally. I got a note from Steve, wait 1 minute. So, and you and I talked to Jeff, and I've talked to Jeff twice since then. And in fact, we sat and watched some personal watercrafts one day, and they were doing their best to be okay. So we have the rules, we have some enforcement, and the reality is that how often do these infractions occur? And in the scheme of things, not often. When they occur, they're very, very annoying. I mean, I had a powerboat go through the Narrows here at full speed last week. I know it was an off-laker. By the time I went out and chased him, he was gone. And you know, it's dangerous, and it's you know, very, very annoying when it happens. But fortunately, they're not super regular issues. So
yeah.
Did Steve, you get fixed yet?
Steve, you look like you're, nope, still not, still muted. Okay, so really the point of this was to have some of these discussions. We did not have any decisions to make. I think it's great that, you know, Conrad, you and Dan are, you know, are as appropriate having conversations with Jeff when you're out there. And I think review of these things is an area that's helpful, so that we're all remembering what the real rules are. So,
Chris, I need to add a couple things here. Number one, we as commissioners can write town bylaw tickets. And some of the things that boats do are town bylaw violations. I have a ticket book. I am not afraid to use it if I have to. I can no longer legally stop someone, but it's really interesting. Usually when you approach them, they stop. So, you know, we have the ability to write tickets, and, you know, so, but that's only one of me. We need a little bit more. In years past, you know, the commissioners all were very active with ticket books when required. So that was part of our enforcement. Since now we have to depend on law enforcement for enforcement, we've got very limited patrol activity on the lake. Now, we had a jet ski come through here the other night. Well, it's more than the other night now. 2 jet skis came down, they were misbehaving. Andy got his telephoto lens out. We took pictures, we got their numbers.
You can just leave it here. I'm just gonna sit and relax for a little bit. Just go ahead, just leave it. I'll take care of it.
I want to listen to the meeting.
Steve, you're off mute
You're on,
now.
Steve.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Oops, about that. I had to go for a quick water ski.
For the
So,
sunset.
yeah, so I just had a couple comments as like a long time resident now of Lake Boone. You know, particularly about just kind of making you know, suggesting that you kind of think long and hard about doing any new restrictions. I mean, we have a fully recreational lake. We've
Do we lose you, Steve?
I don't know. I wonder if that was my side. Steve, we can't hear you. Okay.
So let me finish.
I'll be the first person to, yell at them. Even my kids have done it. But, I don't, whether you participate in the active, recreation or not, all our property values are up because of it. That's one of the assets of this lake is that we can enjoy it for what it's worth. And, I think if we start banning jet skis, then somebody will say we should ban wake boats. Somebody will say we should ban engines over a certain size. It's just a slippery slope. And, we have rules and regulations. As long as everybody abides by them, things go pretty well. We don't have accidents, injuries, knock on wood, So anyways, that's my input. And in terms of waves, we talk about this over and over about waves impacting shorelines. I've been doing a 19-year case study. We haven't lost an inch and we get the biggest waves on the lake. And anybody can come by and look if they want. If you leave it natural with a lot of bushes and trees and roots, it does pretty well. That's all I had to say. Thank you.
Steve, I'm sorry, what's your last name?
O'Riordan, it's O''R''IOR. Yep. At 12 Davis.
Yep, got you, Steve.
Yep, thanks.
So Chris, let me finish the jet ski thing. So we had a couple jet skis that were causing problems. There were two of them. They were off lake. Andy got out his telephoto lens and we took pictures and we got their numbers. And I called them into the station, central control. And I requested that their cruiser meet them when they were coming off the lake. I don't actually know what happened that night because we don't get feedback. But, if you see violations, especially egregious violations, if you can get the numbers, you can call it in. And if you see it, if you get the numbers and it's a jet ski and it's causing problems, get it in the record. Just call Stowe Police.
That's absolutely, and that's also what Mike and Jeff indicated. So that's a good thing to remember. Get telephoto lenses.
It's a real annoyance when it happens. But if you look at all the hours that are available on the lake, it's not a huge issue. And like Steve just said, we really haven't had any accidents or anything like that on the lake in a very long time. So, but
yeah,
I understand the whole issue, but anyway, thanks for going through it.
Chris, I've seen Dave Gray's hand up.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, the one issue that I am concerned about is the erosion of the lake. The wake surfing has become popular. That's the one where you get on a surfboard and expect to have a wave the size that will carry a surfboard. And I know what it's like. I did that 60 years ago on Lake Erie, and Lake Erie's a little bit of a different water body than this. But you're generating huge waves, and very often they go around the lake, sometimes within 150 feet of the shore, but it causes severe erosion. And I think that people have to, just from common courtesy, should be doing this in the middle of the lake so the waves have a chance to dissipate before they get to the shoreline where they generate that kind of damage. The other factor with wakes is that most people don't understand that it's at very intermediate speeds that boats generate the largest wake, the most destructive waves, and of course that's the speed they go for wake surfing. But in addition to that, when you approach a no-wake zone, a lot of people will run up there at 35 miles an hour and then just speed when they get to the buoy. And so they are coming down at that intermediate speed just as they're hitting the narrow area, so that the people at the entrances to the narrows are taking a beating. Dave Saworski said he gets that consistently. And my recommendation is that the LBC should locate the buoys further out from the narrows so that you encourage people to slow down before you get to the point where you're going to damage the land on either side. The last point I would make is that many of these large boats that generate the large wakes are kept in the narrows or in coves where they don't suffer the damage that they generate in other parts of the lake. And I think that's really unfair.
The other thing, Dave, that surprised me was when I read that the wake boats disturb the ground floor of the lake 16 feet down. And what they're doing, if they did it in the second basin, they're stirring up the sediment, which is going to raise the phosphorus and it's going to bring algae blooms on more so every year. So, I mean, that's number two for me. Number one is personal safety of all the other people that are trying to boat in that body of water while they're ripping down the middle, making large waves. That's safety is number one, and the sediment is number two for me.
Yeah, I'm sorry, there was one addition to that. With the huge waves that come along, we have to remember that the LBC has approved with the Recreation Commission to get inexperienced people out on canoes, kayaks, and stand-up paddleboards. And when they're confronted with waves the size that can be generated out there, there is a safety issue.
Assuming they're out there at the same time.
So I'm just sort of thinking here, is there, probably everybody on this call is conscious of the issues that we're dealing with and is on the lake. And I know that in order to report somebody to the police, you need, and have them take action, you need to have the registration number, and all that gets very difficult. But is there a way for the Lake Boone community to kind of self-enforce, to, and I think in a sense, this is what you do, Conrad. You go out there and you talk to people and you kind of know who the problems might be and you're talking to them. And is there a way for us, maybe this is too, generic a thought here, but it's somewhat akin to the healthy Lake Boone. You got a lot of volunteers and they're all sort of taking care of measurements of the lake. Can we self-enforce just through communication when we see something crazy?
Can we take boat registration numbers at the public launch?
You're gonna sit down there and do that?
If I had to, and if there were enough people willing to do it.
So Jeff did that this past weekend. He spent his first 2 hours on shift at the public launch checking boats before they went in.
Okay.
So interestingly enough, what Steve said, Steve and Teresa live at a spot where they get the big wakes from the boats slowing down. And they do so, they throw stuff around on the docks, but they're not causing the erosion. I've been on the lake a long time. And as far as I can tell, the shorelines are pretty much the same as what they were when I came here in '79. So.
Yeah, Connie, I would just add to that, I know Dave Swirsky gets big waves. We're at the other end of that Narrows. We get the same waves. We haven't lost an inch. And, I've said that again, but the thing about policing the lake, self-policing, I've found personally, you don't need to necessarily call the cops. You just talk to somebody. Most people are reasonable. And if they're doing something, they're generally not conscious that they're violating some rule. You just, talk to them, and they usually are very polite.
Yeah, I agree. And David, on your other comment, I have moved the buoys out. They are further out now than they used to be. So if you go back 10 years or 15 years, they were much tighter to the Narrows than they are today.
Okay, I think this is kind of accomplished, at least an opportunity to have conversation, to understand the rules that exist. I don't know that we want to spend any more time on this. It can certainly be a future agenda item if the commission wants to pursue any particular action. But I think the number of the things that were mentioned is we should all be aware what the rules are, so that we, if we perceive there's an issue, but it's not really an issue, we aren't calling the police or whatever, But if we see something, you can say something to the people, if that's convenient. If you really think there's a violation that is, an issue, call it into the town Stowe Police. And as mentioned, there's pretty much nothing that can happen if you aren't able to get a registration number for the boat. And I think this is just an area to continue monitoring and decide, if there's any other particular actions. But our intent was not today to actually take any particular action or, decide on anything. It was really education and hearing input.
Thank you, Chris. Can I make one last comment?
Sure.
Commissioners have limited harbor master authority. And any boat, as soon as they throw an anchor overboard and they're anchored on the bottom of the lake, you have authority over where that boat is. And I have many times gone up to an anchored boat and asked them to move because they'd anchor right in the middle of the lake. So we have some harbor master authority that kind of mixes in all this. So, but that's just the three of us. You got to be out there.
Yeah. And Conray, is that a violation, or is that a courtesy in a sense, like that boat's not more in the middle of the lake?
It's not a violation, but we have the power to ask them to move. If they don't move, then it's a violation.
Okay, but that might be a discussion for another day.
Yeah, we have limited harbor master authority. We don't get to carry guns. If we had full harbor master, we could write 90B tickets. So then we have to be trained, and we're not going to do that.
Yep.
An idiot.
All right. Okay. I'm going to close out on that. And again, as I said, there could be future action items, but we really wanted to just make sure we were aware of rules that exist and go from there. So I am going to stop sharing here. Back to that. Okay. All right. So the last big item on our agenda today had to do with leadership transition. So I know, Dan, you wanted to, maybe you want to lead that conversation, and you wanted it on the agenda, and we can talk through whatever.
Well, I think it is all three of us have input here, but I did want to find out, first of all, about replacing you. Have you been in conversation with Denise? Do you know of applicants? What is the status? Will we review that person, make recommendation to the select board, or where are we with that process?
Yep. Okay. So I can answer that. So I have checked in with Denise. Interestingly, so first of all, this is for a Stowe commissioner, so it doesn't involve the Hudson Town Management. It turns out that it is within the charter of the Stowe Town Administrator that they have the responsibility of interviewing, recommending people to fill spots on commissions and committees. And so Denise is not looking for the LBC to officially vet any. At this point, she could come back and ask for some input, but she is not looking for that to be something that is done by the LBC. So my understanding is that as of today, anyhow, there was still one candidate, and she had not yet interviewed that candidate. And so beyond that, so obviously there's no recommendation yet to the select board of Stowe.
So do you, and I think that they're actually wanting to do that in the second select board meeting, I think, because frankly, my own membership as, participation as
Renewal.
commissioners,
Yep.
also I'm ending my term. I want to renew it. I've requested that, but that does need to be approved. And I believe that takes place on the 28th, which is the day before our 29th meeting. So do you believe that Denise will make a recommendation for that replacement person who could possibly even be sworn in on the 29th, or however that person takes.
I have no knowledge other than the fact that she has one person and she has not actually interviewed them yet. So she didn't give me any deadlines or anything. And they don't have to, there's not a timeline. They don't have to put someone in place immediately. If for some reason they don't feel they have enough candidates, or I don't know what their process will be. So I can't answer that, Dan. I don't, and she wouldn't answer, I don't think you could get that answer from her at this point.
Chris, would she tell you who the candidate was?
No.
Dan, I have lived through many times when it's been a 2-member board. So we've had a vacancy, people have left, and it's taken 1, 2, 3 months sometimes to get a replacement. So it might be you and I for the summer.
So so I think, Conrad, you and I will have to figure out what kind of roles we each would want to have in such a situation. And I don't know whether we want to start any of that discussion today, or whether we want to wait until the 29th when we have more information, or what's your preference, Conrad?
I think I'd rather wait till the 29th. You and I talked a little bit about this when we were out in the boat, which was legal because we weren't making any discussions. I'm not very good at keeping notes. You do really good ones. So, my gut feel would be to get a new person on board, get that person trained up, let that person become the secretary, and then you could become chairman. And I would be chairman as an I can't say it. I would serve that time period when we were training the new person. I don't really want to be chairman again, but of the two, chairman versus secretary, I'm better at chairman than I am at secretary.
God, who cares? Dan, don't get sucked into this.
So we can't make, that, well, we're in a meeting right now, so we can talk about it, but, that's my feelings.
Yeah, and I think I'd be willing to go along with that approach. I think until the person comes on, then we decide how to proceed. But to tell you the truth, I've been so busy with all the minute taking and all the Lake Boone, the Healthy Lake Boone initiative, that to also now take on the chairmanship for me, I'd be. If it's appropriate and useful at some point in the future, maybe, some phase or something. But just, speaking openly about my own preference, if you did that on a temporary basis, that would be fine with me.
Yeah, I've been chairman for 20 odd years, and, I'm going to miss Chris, she's done such a wonderful job of doing stuff. We're definitely going to miss her. But she's also left a nice legacy behind, because she's given us a good, the template of the things she's done and et cetera, which I looked at today, Chris, they're good. So that's very useful. And the yearly calendar is extremely useful. So that gives us something to make our life a little easier, Dan, because we can look at the yearly candle and we know what we got to get done. So, yeah.
And I also echo, Chris, you've done a stellar job. And much as I love Conrad, I really wish you could stay on, but I think you really have done a stellar job.
So one question I have for you guys is whether it makes sense to make the transition after this, and so make the motion and approve the motion for the, establishing the chairman, different chairman. So me stepping out of that, and if appropriate, then Conrad stepping into it in this meeting, so that the next meeting, Conrad can be running it and I will still be there as a commissioner to kind of support it, with any issues or questions or whatever. It gives a little bit of a softer transition.
Well, I would prefer, Chris, if you stayed on till the end of the month. That is your role. I think you have things you're wrapping up. I don't think there's any need to jump into this. And in fact,
Right.
yeah, so that's
Right.
my,
You know, in reality, things are pretty good right now. There's always going to be some issues. But if you look at it, at this agenda and you look at moving forward, it's all pretty simple stuff. It could get more complicated in the future, but you know, right now, you know, our biggest issue going forward is making sure our budgets are in place and our warrant article money and the weed treatment and that stuff is covered properly.
Yeah.
and Conray, I'd be willing to help out by kind of managing just the details of the financials, if that would help.
It would help. You know, the trouble is fizz year versus, you know, the contract year, unless it's changed, contract year is different than fizz year. And that's why it's so hard for us. You know, the towns is July 1 to June 30th, but the contract is the physical year, January 1 till December 31. So that's why we have to always plan for money ahead of time, et cetera. So, you know, but we understand it. So yeah, I don't know what else to say. We'll figure it out. I would prefer that, Chris, you remain chairman for the last meeting.
Okay.
At the last meeting, put on the agenda election of new officers. And we'll make that election and then we'll do the transition because you're going to be gone June 30th. So we have to be able to call the next meeting and do all the stuff, get the postings done, et cetera. Create the agendas, get the postings, et cetera.
Yep. Okay. All right, so is there anything else? I know I sent you guys a package of transition documents. It sounds like, Conray, you had a chance to at least scan through there. You know, take a look. Let me know if there's some stuff that you feel, you know, you'd like me to add into that. I'm trying to just kind of leave you with some instructions and a little bit of understanding of some of the procedures that I've had to learn. And I would say that one thing to keep in mind is that, and I did check this today, unless the state comes up with an extension to the open meeting law, the in-person meeting, the commission itself will have to revert to in-person meetings July 16th.
So we have
So it
meetings.
doesn't, you can still hold a Zoom meeting for participants, but the commissioners have to be physically present.
Yeah.
So we could still have the Zoom meeting concept, which frankly, I would just assume continue with Zoom for all around, you know, but if we keep the look and feel of the Zoom, that is, the commissioners will need to be in the physical room,
Yes.
but we're not expecting as our default scenario that other people join in, that we have a good Zoom, good way to handle that with Zoom.
So we have that issue at another venue I work at. And what we did is we did live Zoom meetings for a while, but now if you want to participate, all our officers have to be at the meeting, number one. If you want to participate in the meeting, you have to be at the meeting. If you want to listen to the meeting, we do the video and audio out for people so they can see what's going on, but you don't get to vote. You don't get to do anything unless you physically come to the meetings. So and then the other hard part, Dan, is setting up those Zoom meetings that work both ways. It is non-trivial, and I've got more gray hair now trying to make that work.
But I do recall when we've polled participants in the meetings, the public as well as ourselves, it has been unanimous each time that, you know, we prefer the Zoom.
I agree, but the law doesn't, so we have to follow the state regulations.
Yeah.
Right, but well, we can talk about this more as that time comes up, but the idea of having the commissioners in person, but other people perfectly fine, Ernie, Dave, you know, Laura, Steve, whoever can join in by
telling you that technically it is non-trivial.
Yeah, so whatever site you are at, you are going to have to be able to run a Zoom meeting with camera or whatever of, so he's right. There are some logistics to it that have to get worked through. So
Yeah, I've
a
done
little simpler.
for 10 meetings over since COVID's happened, and we went through nightmares trying to make it work.
Yeah, it's much
Ernie,
easier when when you're just sitting in front of one laptop and that's what's hosting the meeting. So
Chris, Ernie is raising his hand.
yeah,
Conway is right. On the zoning board, we have a in-person meeting with the Zoom, and the Zoom has always been an issue. Getting it set up, making it work, and recognizing the people out there is great for the people listening, but trying to get them to participate, it makes it very difficult.
Hmm.
But it does allow more people to participate, to at least hear what's going on. But it's not fun.
yeah. Okay. So we'll defer to the next meeting on sort of the motions on the officer elections and maybe a little further review of transition activities. Fair enough?
Yes, and on that same agenda, keep the boat, motor, et cetera on it.
Sorry, what?
Keep number 6 again, the boat,
Yep.
motor replacement, buoys
Yep.
and other. So we need to look at that a little bit.
Yep.
I
I have one piece of old business before we finalize through on new business, Conway. So
Yeah, listening.
so I think we're done with leadership transition. We just have an action to move into the new business on that. What I wanted to just update on old business is, so for Conrad, you had raised a question about the state approval, of the bylaw changes, and so the bottom line is that our voting regulation elements, which are the ones that have to go through the various levels of approval, and were approved at the 2 town meetings, et cetera. Those have gone through and were approved by the Attorney General's office. However, the challenge is that they're not showing up on the environmental police website at this point, and therefore there's one more step to get them onto the environmental police website. And so we have initiated that paperwork. Denise put that paperwork through, and is just waiting for a response back on that. So that is that last step in order for us to make sure that it's properly updated on websites is in progress.
So it's only updating the website. It's not approving what we did.
Well, so it's gotten the approval of the Attorney General, which is what they wanted. But they have to approve, they now have to look at it and say, yep, okay, it's good to go onto the website. So I guess in a way that's a level of approval, but that's the way that it works.
So, okay, so since the town bylaws have been approved,
Mhm.
we can write a ticket against the town bylaws based on the new rules.
Yeah, so keep in mind that we have the authority to write sort of the behavioral elements of our bylaws, which are the, don't dump stuff into the lake and, all of that stuff. The boating regulations are the thing that had to go before the towns because it's police enforcement.
No, yes and no. So if you're out there after dark with no lights, we can write that violation. Because in our thing, it says that a motorboat must have this equipment. That's one of our bylaws. It's also says the same thing in Chapter 90B. But some of those requirements on boating are still kept. I don't have them in front of me right now. But for instance, someone pulling 2 lines between a boat, we can write that. It's a town bylaw.
It is a police bylaw. It is written into the police bylaws. So So the boating regulations are the ones that are written into the speed, the water skiing, towing, et cetera. Those basically 3 rules were the boating regulations. Those are written into the the town bylaw. And so I don't even think they're in your bylaws in Hudson, truly. They just got approved at town meeting. But things like the 20 feet, approving docks and, a number of the general regulations, those don't show up under EP, the environmental police enforcement. Those are not something they enforce.
Oh, I agree with that.
So they don't put them on their website.
I agree with that, but it's still, for instance, on Lake Boone, you can only have one line behind a boat if you're towing something.
Correct.
That's still a town bylaw.
It is, because it is part of our boating regulations
Right, but that.
portion of the bylaws.
So if I'm hearing you right.
Yep.
The environmental police won't write that, but we can.
No, the environmental police could, once they're,
Right
they
now.
agree to post it,
okay,
right?
They can't.
Right, they
Once it's
can.
posted, they can, but in the
Yes.
meantime, we could.
I don't think that we being the commissioners could.
Okay,
I think that the Stowe police could.
I think that we still have the authority, if it's a town bylaw and there's a violation, I believe we have the authority to write it.
It's part of the police portion of the bylaw. I think the police can
Yes.
only enforce it.
Correct.
How about airplanes? Do we prohibit airplanes from landing? We prohibit airboats, but that means that needs to be, if we do not allow airplanes to land on the lake, we need the Massachusetts Aeronautical Commission to agree to approve that also.
I've forgotten what that one, there was I don't think we have anything in ours on planes.
We used to at one point in time.
Oh, yeah, no, you should use yes, we do, as a bylaw. Taking
And I
off
think
the landing of aircraft except in case of emergency.
I think the Aeronautical Commission has to approve it too.
But that's been in place, Ernie, forever. We didn't change that one.
Yeah, we have not. That was,
They've never been approved though by the Aeronautical Commission, that's all. I doubt if they have, because the Aeronautical Commission isn't that old.
I don't know. Might be something for the future to look into there.
You might ask the town council if that needs to happen.
Yeah, well, we did go through town council years ago to kind of make the separation, and they agreed that the general regulations were not something that had to go to town meeting. It was the boating regulations. So, but it's worth asking.
Okay,
So that's where things stand. I just wanted to update you on where things stood on that, since Conrad, you raised it.
yeah,
I think at our last meeting.
thank you.
Okay, so new business. So we've already added election of new officers, and we've added kind of a review again of the boat motor, et cetera.
And I need to present the Rhode Island Analytical, but that would be under,
Yeah,
bill for payment.
buildings, yeah.
So Dan, in Hudson, we can't pay a bill from last year without approval at town meeting. So if in order to pay that bill, we would have to literally have it a warrant article on the town meeting.
Yeah, so let me investigate the status.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll
Good night.
identify if there's any other things when we set the agenda, which will be fairly soon, since you want to meet again. But I think our date of next meeting, we're shooting for June 29th.
Yes.
Okay. And that will still be a Zoom meeting. And if there's nothing else, then do I have a motion to
I
adjourn?
move to adjourn.
Wait a-
All right,
Oh, June, never mind. Yeah, okay, motion, I'll second that motion.
okay. And that requires no discussion. All in favor? Aye, and that passed. So we are adjourned at, what time is it? 9
9
o'clock,
o'clock.
9 PM. So, all right,
All right.
thank you all.
Take you all.
Bye,
All
bye.
right.
Have a good evening.
You too.
Bye-bye.